How's it going, everyone? This is Mitchell Mander here, and welcome to another review of Pokemon 2019. Today I'm going to be talking about episode number 9, which involves Ash and Go heading to the Johto region in search of Ho-Oh. And this episode was decent. I think it was better than last week's episode, but again, this episode was, it was just alright. Wasn't too bad, wasn't too great either. Anywho, before I get into the review, I just want to say if you like this content, if you like these videos, be sure to like and subscribe as I cover the Pokemon 2019 series on a weekly basis, or whenever the episodes come out. Anyways, onto the review. Now, the episode starts off at the Sakuragi Labs, in which Go pretty much is telling Ash and the others that there's been various sightings of Ho-Oh in the Johto region, specifically in Erdreik City around the Bell Tower. And the funny thing here is that Go wants to capture Ho-Oh, as it's part of his goal to capture all Pokemon before catching Mew. Whereas Ash, on the other hand, he's already seen Ho-Oh before, but he wants to battle Ho-Oh, a legendary Pokemon. So, one character wants to catch a legendary Pokemon, and the other one wants to battle it, which Professor Sakuragi finds this amusing, and he sends the two boys to the Johto region to investigate. Now, as Ash and Go arrive in the Johto region, the very first thing that happens is Go catches a new Pokemon, because that's what he likes to do every time he enters a new region. Immediately catch a new Pokemon. This time around he catches a wild Sentret. But before he can even take a look at the Pokemon or take it out of its Pokeball, Ash and Go seemingly spot Ho-Oh in the sky, and it seemingly uses Fire Blast on Ash and Pikachu, and Ash retaliates by having Pikachu use Thunderbolt, and it seemingly knocks it out of the sky. It turns out that this is not Ho-Oh, but a Fearow and a Cyndaquil disguised as a Ho-Oh. It turns out that a young boy named Kirio, I think that's what his name is, was pretty much using this Ho-Oh disguise to convince his grandfather that Ho-Oh still exists, as it seems like his grandfather has pretty much given up on Ho-Oh's existence, and even tells the others to give up on Ho-Oh or go away because there's no point in chasing after Ho-Oh because it doesn't exist. It's just a mere legend. Though Ash tries to refute this by saying that he encountered Ho-Oh on his first day as a Pokemon trainer in the very first episode, which I gotta say, nice continuity and nice throwback here, and this is the type of continuity that we definitely need in this series, but more on that later. But the grandfather is not having any of it and tells him that it's just nothing and to go home because Ho-Oh doesn't exist. We then get a bit of a flashback with Koir talking about his grandfather when he was much younger, having come across Ho-Oh, though he didn't quite get a good look at Ho-Oh, as Ho-Oh was behind the clouds. But he managed to get one of Ho-Oh's feathers, and kept it as a treasure for many years, as he searched for Ho-Oh for seemingly decades, eventually telling his grandson about Ho-Oh. Unfortunately, after some time, it would seem that decades of searching and not being able to find Ho-Oh caused him to lose faith, eventually gave up all hope, and came to the conclusion that Ho-Oh actually doesn't exist. And after a while, it seems like the feather dulled out as well, showcasing his hopelessness and him giving up. He even tried to destroy the feather, but he couldn't, so he just decided to throw it away, though his grandson did end up saving the feather. Now, Ash and Go are not going to give up so easily, so the three boys head into the Bell Tower, in which they stumble across a mural of Ho-Oh, and you can see a rainbow in the mural with Ho-Oh. This reminds Go of a picture he saw at the Sakuragi Lab with Ho-Oh, and there's a rainbow in the picture as well. So they come to the conclusion that in order to find Ho-Oh, they need to wait for the rainbow to come out. And with the weather pretty much clearing up soon, a rainbow should be showing up. So they decide to head to the top of the Bell Tower in hopes of possibly seeing Ho-Oh when the rainbow comes out. Now, before they head up to the top of the tower, Kirio actually goes and grabs his grandfather. Despite the fact that he wants nothing to do with Ho-Oh, he doesn't believe Ho-Oh exists, he is very reluctant to do something like this, he decides to head up with the boys, but he reminds them not to get their hopes up. So as they're heading up to the top of the tower, before they can actually get up the first set of stairs, they're actually being followed by a Strantler and a Misdrevious, who begin to mess with them, in which the Misdrevious is the first one to mess with them, and they seemingly start to get stuck in the staircase. And that's when they look up and there's a Strantler, which they look at its antlers, and it pretty much creates an illusion where they're basically hanging onto a side of a cliff. They all manage to make it up to the top. However, as soon as they get to the top, they're now suddenly in a desert. However, that's when the grandfather uses his elderly Hu'u to use foresight to basically get them out of the illusion. And that's when Go uses his Pokeballs to catch both Pokemon. And it ends the trap. Now as they reach the top of the bell tower, the clouds are pretty much getting ready to clear up. The rain is pretty much stopped and the rainbow is going to show up at any time. So that's when Kohiro actually reveals to his grandfather that he still has the Ho-Oh feather that his grandfather threw out some time ago. And he's kept it this entire time despite the fact that it's still dull. Though it does show a little bit of color here and there. He then raises the feather up and calls out for Ho-Oh, and he does this for a little while. And then he eventually calls his grandfather over to basically help him out and call out Ho-Oh, basically encouraging him to get his drive back into finding Ho-Oh. So the grandfather takes the feather and calls out for Ho-Oh as well, though he pretty much tells them to give up for now. Instead of giving up completely, he tells the boys that they're going to give up for today. However, he's going to search again for Ho-Oh tomorrow. And that pretty much Ash, Go, and his grandson have pretty much inspired him to basically look for Ho-Oh all over again. And as soon as he pretty much says that, the feather begins to glow again, completely regaining all of its lost color. And as Ash, Go, and the grandson Kohiro pretty much start walking down the tower, as the old man is about ready to walk down as well, he actually turns around and, lo and behold, Ho-Oh makes an appearance in the sky. And after all these years, the old man has finally seen Ho-Oh for the first time. And he calls the boys over to go see Ho-Oh, but unfortunately it's too late and Ho-Oh has already flown off into the distance. But he's pretty much given hope to the old man that Ho-Oh does exist. And Ash is like, yep, see, I told you. And that's pretty much where the episode comes to an end. Now, I'm just going to be completely honest. This episode's plot was kind of generic. It was very basic. And I kind of felt like it was resolved a little too easily with the old man and his grandson. Because after all this time, he's pretty much given up on Ho-Oh. But because Ash and Go and his grandson all head up to the top of the bell tower, suddenly he's inspired to find Ho-Oh again, just like that. Kind of felt a little bit forced and kind of unrealistic. But yeah, the plot, it was very generic in this episode. Now, even though this episode was pretty generic and not my favorite episode of the series so far, I think we can all agree that the continuity nod in this episode was perfect. And this is something that's definitely needed in this series. And that's something I want to see more often. And it doesn't need to be in every single episode, but I definitely want to see more continuity nods throughout this series. Especially when we go to different regions. Like if we go to Kalos, I'd like a continuity nod there. Or in Unova, or in Alola, or any region they go back to. I want to see more continuity nods. It doesn't need to be every single episode, but we need some important ones. Like this one was definitely needed because this was a big event in the Pokemon anime with Ash and Pikachu seeing Ho in the very first episode. This was something that if they ignored this would have been a huge problem. So yeah, I'm actually pretty glad that they decided to showcase this continuity in this episode, and hopefully we see more nods in the future. So that's all I got for this episode review. So overall, a pretty average episode, but the continuity nod was pretty amazing. So I'm going to give this episode a solid 5.5 out of 10. So guys out there, what'd you think of this episode? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below, and be sure to like and subscribe. And I will talk to you all later.